is Ayaskar Pandit, and today I'm going to explain about signal propagation and path loss modeling. So let's get right into it. So first up, we're going to explain about the propagation characteristics. So what is exactly propagation? Propagation basically means is how the signal propagates or moves from the transmitter side into the receiver side. So from this figure on the left, the PT is the transmitting side and the PR is the receiving side, and the signal is characterized by power. And from here, the transmitted power is constant, but not for the received power. It is not constant. So when the receiving side is steady, as shown in this car, if it has no velocity, it receives a better signal. And move on into this graph right here. The y-axis depends on the power received, since the transmitted power is constant, and the x-axis right here depends on the distance between the transmitter and the receiver. So as the distance increases, the power that the receiver gets decreases exponentially, and this is represented in the blue line right here. From there, there's this red block that represents an object that creates a non-line of sight scenario, which I will explain later. And the red graph here shows a changing intensity of the power right here, and the last one is the green one. And when there are many refractions due to, like for example, buildings, walls, and etc., the changing in received power experiences some kind of ripple effects, such as shown in this green line right here. And all of the scenarios that I've previously explained are represented with path loss for the blue line, shadowing for the red line, and the multipath fading for the green one. And in telecommunications, a predictable signal is the key to how many powers there are that the receiving side is going to compensate. So now let's move on into the path loss modeling. So the first one, we're going to explain about the Maxwell's equation. So basically, Maxwell's equation investigates the interaction between the electric field and the magnetic field. The electric field is the E, and the magnetic field is the H1. And it is combined to become an electromagnetic propagation. However, it is very difficult and impractical. Thus, simpler methods need to be used, which are the number two, which are the free space and two-path models, or the two-ray models. So first one is the free space model, or the line of sight model. So line of sight basically describes on the propagation of signal without any obstruction to the receiver, such as in this image it is a curvature of the earth. It can also be buildings and mountains and etc. So in general, the free space model characterized that power falls is proportional to the inverse of the distance squared, and it is proportional to the lambda, or the wavelength, squared, and it is inversely proportional to the frequency squared, which are caused by the effective aperture of the antenna. So the next one is the two-path models, or the two-ray model. So basically, the receiver receives two type of signal. The first one is this line of sight one, and the other is the non-line of sight signal. The non-line of sight signal came from reflections, refractions, or many other things. And from this model, the power falls is proportional to the distance squared. The power decreases significantly when the distance is greater than its threshold distance, and it is very far away. And from this model, it states that it is independent from the wavelength and the frequency. Okay, let's move on into the next part, which is the ray tracing model, or the general ray tracing. So basically what this does is that it takes reflection, scattering, and diffraction phenomenon. And from the figure, due to many reflections or refractions, the receiving side may receive many signals. This general ray tracing model takes into account all of the listed problems above. And in general ray tracing, reflections generally dominate. As you can see right here, the reflections generally dominate, and general ray tracing requires a side geometry and dielectric properties to model it. And now let's move on into the fourth part, which is the simplified path loss model. And as the name suggests, it is basically the simplification version of the path loss model. So it is used when the path loss is dominated by reflection from objects. So from this equation, the most important parameter is the gamma for the path loss exponent, and it is determined empirically, and the gamma ranges from 2 up to 8. From here, the dr is the receiver location, and d is the reference point to the receiver's location, while pr is the received power and the pt is the transmitted power. Okay, now let's move on to the next part, which are the empirical channel models. So first up, let's discuss about the early cellular empirical models. So the first one is the empirical path loss models. The next one is Okumura model, Hata model, COS231 model, multi-slope model, and the Wolfish or the Bertoni. And for these empirical models, in area which are not suitable for the millimeter wave, the existing channel modeling cannot be used. So the early cellular empirical models are based on extensive measurement, and the examples are here. And it has a disadvantage that this model is dependent on the location of the experiment. For example, the Okumura model is conducted in Tokyo, Japan, where there are, of course, many obstructions such as buildings, and it is also dependent on the geographical location of the model. So it is not feasible to use this model in other places, such as maybe in Indonesia. And now let's move on into the current cellular models, which are detailed path loss models for user equipment and base stations for different multipath delay spreads, user speeds, and MIMO antenna correlations. And the next part is the Wi-Fi channel models, which are indoor and outdoor path loss models with MIMO 40 MHz channels and greater, and different multipath delay spread. Okay, now let's move on into the last part, which is about the millimeter wave. So the first step is that millimeter wave starts from the 60 GHz and up to 100 GHz spectrum frequency, and it is located in the high spectrum bandwidth. And as you can see from this image, the top left shows the lowest frequency, while the bottom right shows the highest frequency. So the order is like a snake, like this, up to the end. And for example, let's say 5G. And this image is based on the United States. So in the United States, the 5G cellular occupies the 38 GHz frequency, while, for example, AM radio is occupying this part, Wi-Fi 2.4 GHz, FM radio in this part, and etc. So the millimeter wave part is here in this part, from the 60 GHz and up to the 100 GHz spectrum. So oh yeah, and since millimeter wave works in high frequency, getting bandwidth is much easier, and millimeter wave still needs more research since its channel modes are still immature, and which are based on measurements, few accurate analytical models, and the path loss is proportional to the wavelength squared, and it has an absorption of oxygen and rain. So now let's take a look at this image right here, the left one particularly, and the y-axis of this graph shows the attenuation, and the x-axis is the frequency right here. So basically, if the attenuation gets higher, the worse it becomes. And as you can see right here, in the graph, there it shows spikes whenever there are H2O or water and oxygen. As you can see right here, in near the 23 gigahertz frequency, in the 6 gigahertz frequency, and so on, there appears a spike, and it is bad for the millimeter wave, and it shows that the millimeter wave absorbs oxygen and rain. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you for watching.